Hey guys, welcome to Blazing Guitars, where we talk about worship, gear, music, guitar, and everything in between. My name is Blaze Nelson, and today I want to share with you a couple reasons that we do 2 practices a week for our Sunday service. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So before we jump into this, please don't hear this video as a command or a reprimand of your practice schedule. I know that there's a lot of different reasons that a band might not even be able to practice once a week. And so I want to be respectful of that and hear that. It might be a scheduling conflict, or you might not have access to the facilities. You might be a set up and tear down church, and setting up your gear twice a week might not be reasonable. And so, or you yourself might be burnt out and unable to donate more time. And so I don't want to make you feel guilty for not doing enough, and I don't want to make you feel like you have to do this to have a successful worship team. We practiced once a week for years, and it went really well, so there's no reason to feel bad if you're unable to pull this off. However, with that being said, I do think there's some huge benefits to being able to practice twice a week if you are able to do it. And our worship team is entirely volunteer based, and so when I first had this idea and when we first implemented it, it was a little nerve-wracking to ask volunteers to give more time than what they were already giving. But when we eventually did it and people started falling in line with it, then what we found was that it had some huge benefits. And conservatively guessing, I think we've been doing it for about 8 years. And myself, when we first started doing this idea and practicing twice a week, I was in college, and since then I was single with a full-time job and married, and now I have 2 10-month-old babies. So I've been through a lot of different phases of life, and this 2 practice thing has actually worked out really well and fit in with those different phases of life pretty well. And if I've needed to take a break, then I've been able to also take a break with that as well, which ties into a good reason why you should do 2 practices a week. So with that being said, the first benefit that we saw was that we were no longer, once we started doing 2 practices a week, we were no longer rushing on Sundays. So what our schedule used to be is we used to do Tuesday nights and then Sunday mornings just as a rehearsal. Now what we do is we do Tuesday nights, or Saturday like late evening, and then Sunday morning. And so what we found is that when you have that extra practice, it gives a lot of space and a lot of freedom on Sunday morning, and we don't feel as rushed. So we walk in about 8:30 on Sunday morning, and our worship service is at 10. So we practice for just an hour just to make sure that the sound is good, just to run through kind of any final kinks in the song. And we just do that consistently every week. And what we found is that even if there are major issues in the sound system, or if our lights aren't turning on, or, just as you're doing church, there seems to be a lot of bugs in the building and a lot of things that can detract from Sunday morning. And so what we found is that if we can take the pressure off of practice on a Sunday morning and put it more throughout the week, then our Sunday mornings are a lot more relaxed. And if there are major issues, we can still kind of walk into the worship service relaxed and in the spirit and not stressed out, which just makes for an overall better worship experience. The second reason is that it actually made our band practices shorter and more predictable. So when we're practicing more often, we're able to keep set times because we know that we have another chance to hit the song earlier in the week if we don't get it exactly right the first practice. And so on Tuesdays, we practice from 7 to about 9, 7 to 8:30. And then on Saturdays, we practice from 5:30 to 6:30. And so we just take a little bit of time. It's an hour. Everybody lives pretty close to the church, so we just all drive over there, practice for an hour, and then go home and do our thing. And what we found is that it causes the whole practice to be a little bit tighter, because even if we have a song that we get stuck on for a little bit, we can sit with it. And if we aren't able to hit other songs as well in that practice, we have another practice that we can catch up on. Another big benefit for us has been that we've been able to train younger band members on our Tuesday practices. So we keep Tuesdays open for anybody in the congregation who might want to come and sit during our practice, but then we keep Saturdays really protected for whoever's going to be playing on a Sunday. So what it has allowed us to do is to train up new band members and to invite them in. And then if, like, for example, when my wife had our twins, I was able to take a step out for a couple months because I'd been training up these people to take my spot for years prior to that happening. So it has actually helped release more time because our core band is more skilled and more able to pull songs off well, and therefore requires less time to practice. But then also we're able to train up younger musicians who are actually able to fill in for a sick older player or a sick veteran player. So if you can kind of build in this idea of replicating your worship team and introducing new people and training new people, then it can actually free up time for you, because you're not because the whole service doesn't just rely on you being there and being present. So that was another huge benefit that we saw from practicing twice a week. And then the final thing I wanted to mention was that we found that it just encourages a lot of camaraderie in the bandmates. So when you see each other multiple times a week, for example, Tuesday, Saturday, Sunday, you are just doing life together. And it's awesome, because band is something that's really practical that you can come and work on together, and you're doing something together. And you also, it gives us some space to also just share highs and lows in our week, share what's going on. We're seeing each other consistently. We're able to follow up if somebody's sick, or if somebody's having a hard time, we can ask, just a couple days later, hey, how's that going? Are you doing okay? Any way we can be helpful? And it's just really caused kind of a tight-knitness in our group, which has been really sweet, just especially as we've been doing this for a couple years with our current band. We've just found that we have a lot of camaraderie and kind of a brother and sisterhood going on, maybe more so than if you were showing up once a week and then stressing out on Sunday, and kind of down everybody's throats. If you're in a stressful environment together, then that can be hard to have relational interactions with each other. So we've just found that it's been really helpful for our relational interactions within the team itself. So I guess just a practical on this, one of the things that I was really worried about, so a couple years ago, we used to have 2 campuses, and I was leading worship on one of the campuses, but then when COVID hit, we had to combine down to 1 campus. And we took on some of the bandmates who had kind of families in different scenarios that our old team had. So our old team was mostly single people, and then we had an empty nester who was our drummer. And with the new team, all of a sudden we had people who had teenagers, and we had people with young kids and kids in middle school and babies. So I was really nervous when we combined if we were able to keep doing the 2 band practice thing. And what I found was that everybody was able to make it work, and we really kept it open-handed. We didn't say you had to be at both band practices. What we said was, we're just going to practice twice a week, and if you can make it to both, that's great. If you can't, that's fine. But what it allowed was, even when life happened and people were unable to play on a Tuesday, they were still able to practice on Saturday and be able to play on Sunday. So it really actually opened up a lot of doors for us, because it gave us more consistent practice, even if people weren't there for one of the practices. But then, to my surprise, actually everybody has largely shown up to both practices, and it has not eaten a huge chunk of time out of our weeks, especially if you think about, we're only practicing an hour and a half Tuesday night and an hour on Saturday. That's not a ton of practice time, but the consistency actually helps. I feel like it actually allows the band to practice better and more efficiently. So I think before, they were actually practicing 2.5 hours on a Tuesday practice. So they're getting the same amount of practice, but by the end of 2 hours, you're burnt out and you're tired and you don't want to go through songs again. And things just kind of start spiraling out of control then. But for us, what we found is that we've been able to consistently practice and practice more efficiently, and we're still fresh when we come on Sunday. And then again, when there's issues on Sunday morning, then we've been able to just address those and move on. So in general, it's been a huge benefit for us. If you have any desire to try this, I would really encourage you to do it. And maybe you yourself have some thoughts on how to do band practice or band scheduling, and I'd love to hear those in the comments. Share with us what's worked for you and your team. And if you got any value out of this video, please like and subscribe. It's free to you and helps out tremendously for the channel. And if you have any questions, I have a Discord channel that's linked in the description below. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you soon.